Good evening, President Tim Boyd, Vice President Deepa Padi, delegates attending the 149th International Convention in person as well as online, brothers and sisters, welcome to the 42nd Theosophy-Science lecture titled Science of the Sacred, Water's Transformative Power by Alok Aurovillian. Theosophy-Science lectures are held annually during the International Convention since 1983. These lectures are a part of the activities of the Theosophy-Science Study Group, whose attempt is to understand theosophy in the light of modern scientific thought and to bring about a holistic awareness and a commitment to higher values. In the past, these lectures have featured several prominent speakers in the field of science, including Nobel laureate Professor S. Chandrasekhar, Dr. M.G.K. Menon, Dr. E.C.G. Sudarshan, Dr. Eddie Bilimoria, Professor Ravi Ravindra, Dr. Sangeeta Menon, Dr. Nityanand Rajaram, and several others. In the recent decades, there is a reason to believe that some scientists are slowly moving towards the theosophical view of ultimate reality, that is, of a spiritual source being the ultimate cause of all manifestation in nature. A scan of the recent blogs and YouTube videos suggest that water is not merely inorganic matter H2O that meets the needs of living beings, but it's also a carrier of collective memories and intentions. Ancient scriptures and rituals in different religions have embraced water's spiritual properties. In theosophical literature, too, there are references to 3 levels of manifestation of what we call water. 1, water as a primordial matter from which everything proceeds. 2, water as a source, as one of the cosmic elements. And 3, water as a chemical compound that we know on our planet. So by honoring and respecting water as a sacred vessel of memory and consciousness, we are acknowledging the interconnectedness with all living beings, as well as intricate web of life that sustains us. Today's speaker, Mr. Alok Aurovillian, is a water scientist and seeker based in Auroville, Pondicherry. His worldview was shaped by growing up in the international community of Auroville and studying in Kodaikanal International School. He pursued his higher studies in the US, earning dual honors degree in English literature and mathematics from Warren Wilson College, Asheville, North Carolina, and then proceeded to do his master's in applied mathematics from Clemson University, South Carolina. Alok demonstrated his scientific acumen through several NASA-funded projects, which earned him a membership in the Sigma Psi Society. He has worked as a technology consultant before choosing to return to India, answering an inner call to serve. With these words, I hand over to Alok Aurovillian for his lecture on the subject, Science of the Sacred, Water's Transformative Powers. Alok.
Thank you, sir, for that wonderful introduction. I feel very privileged to be here, following all the eminent scientists who have come before me to present at this event. And it gives me a lot of joy and happiness to be able to share what my journey has been and what I have learned about water. So why should one study water? Annie Besant said that it is science's task to discover the laws of the material world, and those laws are the shadow of a higher reality. And Nikola Tesla also said that we need to find the secrets of the universe by thinking about frequency, energy, and vibration. Those areas will help us to discover the secrets. Victor Schauberger, who is actually a person who has not been known enough, he said that the true foundation of all culture is the knowledge and the understanding of water. And Victor Schauberger is the one who actually helps us to understand how nature connects with water and spirituality. So I will just begin first with my connection with water and how I arrived here, because as you heard, I have a background in mathematics, and after coming back to India, I took over and started the management of a water distribution system in Auroville, and I also worked on research projects. So the first thing was the water distribution system. I have, there were 2 bore wells of our community, and I took over that system to supply water to that area. So we were supplying on a daily basis. We had also filtration systems to supply filtered water to that area. And this is an example of the data that we collected over several years on one of the wells. And this shows how the water level was at 60 meters during the monsoons, and then it went down to 80 meters. And this data helped me to understand actually how the groundwater was getting depleted. And doing this every day for 27 years, I started to understand the importance of the groundwater and how water reacted in the different seasons, and how actually we needed to recharge the groundwater and to work on solutions to transform the used waters for agriculture and other purposes. So this is a second well. When we first dug the second well, the water level was at 24 meters, and within a few months it went down up to 60 meters. So having this kind of change in the groundwater and seeing it visually on a daily basis actually made me feel very concerned and involved in this water journey. So this was my deepest connection to water. And I also did many experiments with the bore wells and groundwater, and I saw that the water responded and recharged by certain types of actions that one takes. For example, I was, at one point, I used one of the bore wells as an earthing pit, and I had connected an earth rod into the water. And within a very short period of time, the water receded. And so I realized that actually I had made a mistake by doing that, and I took it out and I prayed to this water, to the well, to come back, and it did over time, and it did come back to more than its level. So this deep connection with the groundwater helped me to understand actually that it is responding to our way of treating it. And my other work that I'm doing right now is applying structured water for agriculture. And this work is happening in Spain and Italy. And here are just some examples of what we have seen and the changes that we see by structuring the water and improving the quality of the water. So on the left you have the regular water, and on the right is the structured water. And the tomato grown with regular water has, you can see, less mass than the structured water. There's more mass, there are more seeds, there's more dry matter. So that physical change happens in plants. And so one was actually the improvement in the vegetable or fruit. We saw that physical change. And another was the actual increase in nutritional values, nutritional content of the vegetables that we were treating. For example, here in the cucumbers, we have an increase of 30% in potassium by using this structured water. And these are examples that we have worked on, and I'm continuing to work on this research right now. Even magnesium was increased by 80%. So by changing water, by putting it through certain processes, we see that nature responds very easily. And so we realized that actually we were not able to measure these changes by the regular parameters that we use to test water. If you just test the pH, TDS, and other aspects, you cannot see the change. So the change that happens is at a very subtle level, it is at an energetic level, and when you put that water onto plants, that's the easiest actually place to see the results of it. And then about 5 years ago, I set up a water testing lab in Pondicherry to work on servicing the area as well as continuing with these experiments. But I realized that the lab was more of a commercial lab, and the parameters we were testing were the conventional ones. And so now I'm in the process of changing that lab to a more research-oriented lab. And so these are my connections with water. And I then went on to a water conference in Lisbon in October. And it was the 16th annual conference on the physics, chemistry, and biology of water. And the top scientists from around the world come to this. It is held at different cities every year. And so I was there for 4 years with these scientists, learning about all the new technologies and new researches that they do. And every year the scientists come and present them. So it was an amazing opportunity, and something that has made me commit to working on some of the knowledge that I received, so that by next year I can help implement some of those. So this is my background and my relationship and connection to water. And I will share with you some of the people who I believe we should know about, who are doing this cutting-edge research, who have done it in the past, who we should be studying and learning from. And so I'll just present to you some of the people that were there at the conference and some whose lineage we follow. Victor Schauberger is the first person that actually I have learned about, who talks about the divinity in water and how important it is to understand nature very closely. And he was a forester in Austria. He was observing how nature worked, and he applied all those principles in all his projects. So it was in forestry as well as in agriculture. So he's a very important, foundational person who everyone refers to when they talk about water and consciousness and how water responds to human connection. The next person was Jacques Benveniste. He did a lot of research on water memory, and he was the first one who proposed that through his experiments. And he said that it's the frequency and the organization of that surrounding the water that makes the difference. And he was able to demonstrate that, how water retained information. And at the time when he presented it, the scientific community actually didn't accept it. And eventually they have come to give him the credit that he was the first one who worked on that. So if we talk about water and how it connects to consciousness, memory is the first thing. Does it actually retain information from its surrounding or from the contact that people have with it? And so he was the first to share that. Then Regine Henschel, she has continued this work and she has done a lot of microscope photography, and she's shown water's interactions with its environment through her photographs. And this is one of the books that she has published, Water and Its Memory. And so she's taken it on the visual level, and you'll see how this makes a difference. So this was another book that she has written called The World in a Drop, and this is a photograph of the same source of water handled by 4 different people. So this is how actually we can be convinced that we make a difference. Our energy, our vibration, our intention, and what we bring actually does influence matter. And water is the most receptive of all matter, because it is waiting, actually. It is waiting for us to give it something. It is like a receptacle that is just neutral, and whatever you put on it, it takes. But one thing that a lot of these researchers have found is that it does not actually take on a negative path. It is always taking on positivity. So even if it has, through images, it might show something that is like Dr. Emoto has shown that, if you have certain emotions, anger, you will see some types of darker crystals and darker formations. But water does not have the capacity to actually go out and do harm. It just absorbs what is around it, and more than anything else, it has the ability to heal itself and also purify itself. So this is the research that is actually coming out. And then we have Gerard Pollack. He was one of the persons who started this water conference, this annual water conference. He's a professor at the University of Washington in Seattle. And he has, in the process of researching water, he has come up and discovered something called the 4th phase of water. And that is a phase which is like a crystalline phase between liquid and ice. And this is the book that he has published. And he calls that zone an exclusion zone that water forms when actually it is in a container. And so water is having this ability when it is frozen or in certain mixtures where it can have like an insulating zone. And it is not the same in the whole glass of water. It's like along the edges, it's very different than what is inside. And so this 4th phase of water is basically a liquid crystal, and this is the new science actually that is being looked at. Everybody who's working on the consciousness of water is looking at this kind of water in a different state. And probably there may even be other states that we have not discovered yet, but this is where it's heading. And then we have Veda Austin, who has taken the work of Dr. Emoto, who has done the work on the water crystals, and she has taken it to another level where she has repeated these experiments many times, and she has also done it by doing it at the stage where the water is freezing between its liquid and its ice stage. So her work is actually showing how water is communicating and how it's absorbing information around it. She says that it is fluid intelligence and it remembers where it has been. And so I want to just show a little video from her website on what she says about this, because she's very very good at explaining what she's doing. So we will just show her that first page.
About it. Some scientists say it seeded the earth from meteorites, while others say it came up. Water, what do we really know about it? Some scientists say it seeded the earth from meteorites, while others say it came up from within the earth's mantle. Fondly known as the rebel element, water defies both physics and gravity. It expands when it freezes and makes its way upwards through tree trunks. Water is mentioned 722 times in the Bible, more than faith, worship, and love. The Quran says we have created every living thing from water, and the Upanishads say the whole universe is made up of water. All beings are made up of water. When we look at a water analysis, we only learn about what water holds. But what do we learn about water itself? Does it have a spirit or a mind? Does it have the ability to store memory? My name is Veda Austin. I'm a water researcher from New Zealand, specializing in crystallography. Over the last decade, I've been studying water in its state of creation, the phase between liquid and ice, and I've discovered something extraordinary. Water appears to intelligently respond to human consciousness. It uses its building blocks of ice to design recognizable pictographs, enabling it to share its messages or acknowledgement back to us in picture form. Have you noticed a little sailboat appearing in the ice? The influence was the thought of a sailboat. My first experience of this phenomenon was when I projected the thought of my hand into a petri dish of water, froze it, pulled it out, and in the architecture of the ice was a hand. I then froze some seawater and an image of a fish appeared. I now have over 40,000 photos of water responding this way. Here are a few examples showing the influence on the right and the ice response on the left. I inspire water in many ways, including thoughts, music, media, words, photos, and emotions. I've even spoken to water and received written responses. The photos you're seeing now were all taken on my iPhone, not altered or photoshopped. They were designed by water and crystallized in ice. So what does this mean? Could the ancients and indigenous be right? Could water really be a living being?
So Veda was there at the conference, and she has come out with a new book called The Language of Water. And in this book, she's actually catalogued all the photographs taken from people around the world that are following her method of freezing the water. And so she has published this book recently, and it is actually a very consistent way of proving that water is able to communicate and has memory, has consciousness. She's done it so scientifically by repeatability and in different environments that it is getting accepted by science now. So, The Living Language of Water. She's got a little intro on this book, and we can just see a few pages of that.
I'm so excited to introduce you to my brand new book, The Living Language of Water. You'll learn my crystallographic freezing technique and why I liken it to a glue and glitter picture. What we're looking at right now is the music section, where I played multiple different genres of music to the water prior to freezing and photographed the incredible visual depictions of them all. We have responses to frequencies, thought waves. We look at homeopathy, diagnostics, healing energies. We look at how emotions impact water. I cover science and spirit, as well as indigenous wisdom and the dream time, and everything that I find fascinating and important about water. With 1,500 photos and over 300 pages, this has been a decade's worth of work and a true labour of love. I can't wait for you to read it.
So after seeing her techniques, I've started actually doing these experiments. And basically you need a freezer at around minus 19 degrees or 20 degrees. And you just need a small Petri plate and your regular mobile phone to do it. And it seems that you need some time to actually keep trying it before the water responds. It does not respond the first time. So this is something that I believe everybody can eventually work on and use as a way to connect with the water around them and see what are the messages that come up. And the reason that this seems very significant for me is because we are born 70% water. And if this is what they say, that water, the way that water responds, imagine what is happening in us with the thoughts that we have, with the emotions that we feel, and all the things that actually we project onto ourselves and the world. So by learning about this, I have become even more concerned and sensitive about what is it that I'm thinking and what is it that I'm projecting out, because it's coming back to me, first to me and then to the world. So this is the essence of consciousness. And what are we putting out there? So the science now is proving that what we think, what we pray, is actually influencing the world. And it is time for us actually to become even more sensitive and learn about the water around us. First of all, just to understand what is the water that we're drinking, what are the kind of emotions and energies that we put into it, and how we can use that to even change things in ourselves. I think we're all here as seekers of truth, and we want to know, and connect to the highest source. We want to know what are the laws of the world. And water is, for me, one of the best ways to do it. So I have started to learn about it through getting involved in the research and setting up a lab that I had no experience in. And also I continue to learn from all these masters and new science that is coming out there telling us that it is responding, and now we can prove it. So I have a couple of key takeaways. Water is sacred. It is life-giving. We all know that. It does resonate with frequency and energy. It's connecting all of us. And it supports our emotional being. What can we do? We need to be more curious about it. I think we all have to take responsibility about learning about the water that is around us, that we drink, that we bathe in, because it is affecting us, and to work on making it better for ourselves and our environment. How do we do that? By putting mindfulness into everything that we do. I know that in the years of managing this underground water source, I became very conscious of the quality of it. I knew the quantity was always changing, but then I started to understand that it is very important to have a healthy water on your skin so that you get hydrated properly, and to immerse in immersion. So I started to go to at least the beach once a week and be in salt water, walk on the sands to balance oneself out. And then there's also cold therapy, to immerse oneself in cold water. Cold water is supposed to be very healthy for you. So I think that's also recommended. And just mindful drinking rituals where we can be very conscious and pray on the water before. If we see that water responds in this way, then we should be praying all the time. So these are some of the things that I would suggest that we take away. And just keep an open mind to what comes, because as we are water, the more we open up to it, we will be led in the discovery of ourselves. So that's why, for me, I have chosen now to focus my life on searching about water and going in this direction, because it is my personal search on spirituality. And I feel that water is really the divine. It is a divine in the manifested form, and it is the substance that is there, present throughout, observing, watching us, available to us. The more we work with it, the more it responds. So my vision is that we transform the spaces that we live in to have water bodies. I think here we're blessed to have two water bodies, one the river and then the ocean on the other side. And to have the element of water inside the campus would be amazing, to have ponds and lakes. And moving water is also very important. They say that if you watch a waterfall and you go into a meditative state, that is an amazing way actually to work on yourself and connect with the source. So having water flow in the campus would be something that we could look at for the future. I would suggest that we keep water as our main thought of how we are dealing with water on a daily basis, and how do we honor it so that we can honor ourselves, because it is ourself, it is the self. I think the more you work on it, the more you will realize how simple it is. And what I have found in all these years of doing research is that the solutions are very simple, and they're very close to us. And there's things that are available to us on a daily basis to make a change in ourselves and in the society around us. So here's the vision for the campus here, to have some water bodies around, and hopefully in a couple of years we will be able to manifest that too. Thank you for listening. I can take some questions now. Yes, sir. The reason people go to the Kumbh Mela, all of them want to go together at that particular time. It is because there's a belief that going and bathing at that particular time will actually help you connect in a certain way. Unfortunately, it is it is an event that brings everybody at the same time, so it becomes very difficult to actually logistically. But it is that belief that water is in us, and this practice of immersing oneself is there in a lot of cultures where we have the baptism also, and going into the water and coming out is a chance for renewing oneself. And this is I always try to take these examples of how we connect with water in society and see that maybe I can do it on a daily basis. instead of having to go all the way there. That when I take the bath and put that mug of water on me, that actually I do the same prayer or ritual that we would go out there to do. And I believe that actually by doing that, it may have the same effect. But of course, when the moon also has a certain influence on the waters of the earth, it enhances the power of that water. In the conference, one of the presenters talked about the water in the trees and how in Switzerland there were only certain days of the month where they would cut the trees. The foresters would cut trees on certain days because of the right time for the water in the trees. And otherwise you would get a wood that is not the best quality. So even the foresters have made such a precise science of cutting a tree at a certain time based on the lunar calendar. And the lunar calendar is the one that actually connects us with water. And we have actually ended up following the solar calendar more than the lunar one. Of course, a lot of the practices in India are based on the lunar one, so we're fortunate to have that. And I think these events like the Kumbh Mela and all are good reminders for us to actually immerse in water. Even if we cannot go there, we can do our own, in our own way. So having water bodies that are rejuvenating themselves, that are in movement and going into them would have the same effect. Thank you.
Whether music therapy can give effect in water level in ground, and whether it can convert water in tank by music therapy as it is applicable in other parts.
Music therapy, sir?
Suppose some music you play in a particular way, whether it can have an effect because it is responding. So I thought whether water level can be affected by music. Because music can affect even cows to give the milk. If that is so, I thought if it can be effective.
So both sound and light have been shown to have influence on water. There are some filtration devices that are made with mantras put into the water, because people believe that actually that works. So this has to be tested more, but I do believe that groundwater will respond to you the way that you behave with it. So when I was managing the bore wells, I was very conscious of how much water I was extracting, and I made sure that I did not pump more than 2 to 3 hours continuously. So I gave time for the water to replenish itself. And so the way that you interact with the water makes a difference. And I do believe that sound and light also has a connection, and water does respond, but we would have to probably search and see if somebody has done that. I have not seen any groundwater responding to that. The challenge with groundwater is that if you have a bore well and you have a neighbor also having a bore well, you both might be tapping into the same aquifer, and you might be putting all your effort to make the water come while the other one is not as conscious. So, but still, regardless of what somebody else does, it can still actually come to you. So I would try it. There's nothing wrong in trying.
Sir?
Yes.
I saw a board displaying in a hotel saying, please use less water. If at all there is a third world war, it is for water only.
So, there is a scarcity of groundwater, more groundwater than we're replenishing. So over the years it is going lower and lower. However, I believe in abundance, and I see the abundance around us. With the last monsoon, we had so much water. All the water bodies and lakes are full. The only problem is that it is in a certain form. It may not be in the drinkable form. And so we have to look at ways in which we can treat that water to use it for a particular purpose. Agriculture uses more water than anything else. And if we find ways to recycle our water and treat our used water, our effluent water, then we can actually have more than enough water. The equation for water abundance is actually energy, because you need energy to treat the water and filter it, or to pass it through certain types of systems. So I think the energy cost is coming down as we find other alternatives like solar and wind. So it is coming to a stage where we can actually treat all our wastewater and reuse. So I know people see this resource, and like anywhere else in the world, everyone wants to control it. And that is the biggest challenge, actually. It is a resource for everyone, and it is something that should be available. But in some places, water rights are purchased. So far, right now, this last year, we had an abundance of water in the whole world. You've seen how there was flooding everywhere. There were cyclones, there were flash floods all over. So we need to prepare for actually channeling water in large quantities and make sure that we don't block those waterways. On this campus, there's no risk of that because of the root system of all the trees. All the water that falls here goes into the ground. Some of it runs off, but because of the trees that bring the water straight down into the aquifer, we don't have flooding here. So, but that's not the case around outside in Chennai. So the importance of trees comes in there. And but I'm not sure when we will start fighting over water, but it is, it's not, I don't think it will be necessary. Thank you. I haven't personally done any research on that, but I can see what you're talking about, the well waters, and what I have... Yes. In Pondicherry, I have not experienced the warm water there in the wells. And in my experience, I have seen that well water is actually cooler than the groundwater. Okay. But I think it also depends on the depth of the well. So, yeah. Sir, you have a question?
I have two questions.
Please.
First, what is exactly a water treated? You showed tomatoes with treated waters
Yes.
and not treated water. I don't know exactly what is treated water. And the second question is, well, we all know about Masaru Emoto, but you didn't mention, is there a relationship between your research and the research of Masaru Emoto?
Okay. Yeah, I will. I'll go and answer your second question first. Masaru Emoto, he had done the foundational work for the way water responds to actually emotions, and he had done the photographs of the crystals. But those crystals were only reflecting the beauty or harmony of that water. They didn't actually reflect an object that the water was next to. So the work that he did, the work that he had started, was what Veda Austin built upon. And she took it to the next level where she had the water exposed to different images, thoughts, and she was able to have it replicated many, many times all around the world. So he was actually one of the first persons to do that experiment of how water is affected. So I did mention him. I didn't put a slide on him due to constraint of time, but he is definitely, he's foundation. I think everybody here would also know about him. Yeah. So, but he has a foundation, and they are doing some research, and they are promoting that. And I think it's more appealing, and one can understand it easier if you see some object in the water that you have actually communicated to the water. Yeah. So, and his experiments were done in he would have a room at minus 20 or 30 degree temperature to do all these experiments, which is very difficult for us to do. Yeah. So it was very, it's easier, much easier to do this other technique now, right? And your first question was on, the treated and the untreated. So basically, now the science, now we know that we have water responds to thought, water responds to energy, frequency, vibration. So when you pass water through devices, structuring water devices, there are so many devices out in the market. One of them can be, for example, a very strong magnetic field. So if you put two magnets and you pass water through that, it changes the way water is clustered. It structures the water. It makes it, let's say, more harmonious, softer, the surface tension changes, and it's more readily available for plants to absorb. So magnetic field is one. Another device that is there is like a spiraling vortex that Victor Schauberger has, created. So there's a Japanese company that makes that as well. So when you pass water through these kind of fields and then you irrigate your plants, you see a difference. I'm working on some of these devices, and I'm trying to, gather different sources of research and put it together. So I have exported many of these, which are being actually implemented both in Spain and Italy. But there's not one way of structuring water. There's so many ways of structuring water. But my passion is for doing something that can be scalable and that can be used at a very large scale for things like agriculture, where you pass a lot of water. So you have smaller devices that can actually put energy into water in a different form, and hydrogen. Even there are these hydrogen bottles that you can actually, for drinking, you put extra hydrogen into it, so it becomes negatively charged, and it's much more balancing for the body. So basically, any kind of structuring device out there can be used to make this change. Yeah.
Thank
Yes,
you,
sir.
Alok. Thank you, Alok Aurovillian. I think, I have been asked by the organizers to kindly stop the questions. If they can be taken offline. Obviously this topic is very, very interesting. It's elicited a huge response. So, therefore, I'm sorry, I'll have to interrupt your questions, but thank you so much for the very illuminating and very interesting talk. And may I now request the President, Tim Boyd, to come over to the stage and give Alok